Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, the radio chick, Annie Ubellis. Join Annie on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an open chat room full of her regulars. And yes, you can even call in. Call 917-889-3675. That's 917-889-3675 to be a part of the action on the phone line. Not able to listen live? Not a problem. You can always catch Annie, the radio chick, and Southern Sense Talk Radio podcast in archives at southern-sense.com. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Southern Sense the right way.
Oh, thank God it's Friday once again. This crazy week, my goodness, this is an election season I never thought I would see, and we have so much to talk about. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina, on Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Blueberry. The heck with it. Just go to our website. It's the name of the show. Put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick Annie, along with my debonair and intellectual co-host and prolific author, known for his website, theoriginalradicals.com, Curtis C.S. Bennett. How is that plug for you, Curtis, today?
Hey, I love it. I love it. I'm feeling so good, though. I'm ready to take on Hillary and Mike Tyson together. That's how good I feel.
Oh, man. We've got so much we've got to talk about, but I want to give a special shout out to our friends, Becky and Dave Bray. Their son, Riken, has been in the hospital, and he's been diagnosed with a septic hip. If anyone knows anything about it, it's an infection that causes an arthritic condition, and if not treated quickly enough, could cause permanent damage. So our prayers go out to Becky and Dave Bray and their son, Riken. Our best wishes are for him. She posted yesterday, 2 days ago, about him. I didn't see anything today. Maybe it will be a little bit later on. So I will keep you up to date on what is going on with him. He's been in the hospital for this past week, and our definite prayers and deepest wishes go out to them. So, Becky, Dave, Riken, we are praying for you. Get well soon, Riken, and get back out there. We miss you, buddy. All right. That said, we've got two fantastic guests, and I'm looking at my show description, and shame on me, I did not put a website up on the show description. We've got Bill Warner. His website is politicalislam.com. He'll be joining us on the first half of the show, and on the second half, keeping along with the line of radical Islam, actually, Islam is Islam, we're going to have Dr. Herb Loudon returning, and his website is the Loudon Center, it's loudoncenter.org. I have one up and not the other, and I will correct that a little bit later on. But we've got a lot to talk about, Curtis, and a lot that's happening.
Well, there's a lot in the news cycle, too, we can cover.
Oh, man, isn't there? And we've got the debate coming up on Monday. And as a matter of fact, following the debate, we're going to have Larry Kobrowski will be joining us, talking us about the debate. And Curtis, do you remember it was about a year or two ago, or was it maybe even 3 years ago? I forget. I get my dates all mixed up the older I get. Elbert Gilroy, who was a state senator in Louisiana, publicly announced he is switching from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party in a rather public announcement. Do you remember that, gentleman?
Very well. I remember it. I had the video somewhere.
Well, he is running for Congress out of Louisiana, and he will be joining us on Tuesday. So it is going to be a rocking good show. It's going to be fun because we'll be talking about the debates, talking about his campaign, and then following that on Friday, we got Ed Brodow, who's going to be joining us. He's got a new book out about the political shenanigans. We've got Susan Simmons. She's going to be talking about an outreach program she's got for military and police called Under the Shield. And Tim Tap into Truth, will be joining us. So we've got shows that are action-packed next week. But that said, anyone that listens to the show knows that we do a dedication to a fallen hero. And as I futz around, I did not pull up the dedication music. I'm a little slow on the uptake today. Oh, thank God it is Friday. I don't have to do too much work.
Yeah, that's all right.
As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the description and what is going on with Blog Talk Radio? Half the stuff I put on the show description is missing. So it's not me being nuts. It's Blog Talk Radio screwing with my mind. Oh, my goodness. I'll have to update the show description after we get off air. But today's dedication is going out to Eastland, Texas Sheriff Deputy Kenneth Herbert Maltby. He was 73 and still serving as a first responder. His end of watch was Wednesday, September 7th of 2016. And this is from officer.com. An Eastland County Sheriff's deputy was killed in a head-on collision south of Eastland, according to the Texas Department of Public Safety, on Wednesday, September 7th of 2016. Kenneth Herbert Maltby, 73, who was on duty and was driving west on FM 570 at about 8 a.m. when the driver of an eastbound pickup swerved into the westbound lane and struck Maltby's SUV head-on, the DPS said in a news release. The pickup driver, 23-year-old Cotton James Conger of Eastland, had swerved to avoid hitting a third vehicle in the road, DPS said. Both drivers were wearing seatbelts, according to the release. Maltby was pronounced dead at the scene, and his body was taken to the Tarrant County Medical Examiner's office for autopsy, according to the statement by Eastland County Sheriff Wayne Bradford. Maltby had been employed with the Eastland County Sheriff's Office since May of 2014. He had also worked in Stephenville and Comanche, among other stops in his law enforcement career. A number of area police departments, including those in Comanche and De Leon, took to social media to express sympathy to Maltby's family and friends. The Comanche Police Department shares in mourning the passing of Eastland County Deputy Sheriff Kenneth Herbert Maltby. The Comanche Police Department posted on Facebook, Deputy Sheriff Maltby honorably served the state of Texas as a peace officer and criminal investigator in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Erath County, Comanche County, and Eastland County. He was well respected and admired by all those who served with him. Throughout his career, Deputy Sheriff Maltby exhibited a steadfast commitment to protecting the people of the state of Texas. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends. And this is from his obituary at the Nolan Anders Funeral Home. October 11th, 1943 to September 7th, 2016. Kenneth H. Maltby of Desdemona went home to his Lord and Savior Wednesday, September 7th, while serving in the county of Eastland as a deputy sheriff. He was born October 11th, 1943 in Texas City, Texas, to Glenn Maltby and Hazel Louise Pace Maltby. Ken married his long and loving devoted wife of 52 years, Rena Carr Maltby, June 13th, 1964, in Desdemona, Texas. Ken lived in the Desdemona community most of his life and graduated from De Leon High School in 1962. He was employed by the Eastland County Sheriff's Department as a deputy since 2014. Prior to working for Eastland County, he served in many capabilities within law enforcement in the counties of Comanche, Erath, Brazoria, and Dallas. He thoroughly enjoyed serving as a narcotics commander for many years in several different locations. Several officers that he supervised called him a no-nonsense leader and shared what he always held them to the highest expectations and standards while seamlessly building true and lasting friendships. He was a committed friend, co-worker, and a true example of a proud American. He deeply loved his country. Serving alongside his brothers in law enforcement was one of his greatest accomplishments in life. He proudly served his communities, often going beyond his required duties, checking in on the elderly and his neighbors, just because he cared. Kenneth also proudly served in the United States Navy as an air traffic controller during the Vietnam War era. Outside of his calling as a law enforcement officer, Ken was a centered family man. His family meant everything to him, and he enjoyed every moment he was able to spend with his wife, children, and grandchildren. His grandchildren were the light of his life, and he was always determined to make new and lasting memories with them. Ken also enjoyed traveling when he had the opportunity. He had his private pilot license and enjoyed flying Cessna planes. Ken had quite a sense of humor and went out of his way to make a stranger into a new friend. Ken and Rena regularly held Bible study classes in their home and invited anyone to join them. He was a devoted Christian and always excited to share God with those who might not know him. Early in his life, he even became an ordained minister. He had many hobbies. He loved both Aggie and DeLon Bearcat football. He liked to watch old movies and tell stories, especially to his grandkids. He was a loving husband, father, grandfather, son, brother, friend, and neighbor. He will be immensely missed by many communities throughout the state of Texas and by his many friends and family members. Today's show is dedicated to Deputy Sheriff Maltby. It is also dedicated to all the brave men and women out there that serve as first responders to protect and serve, who voluntarily go into the face of action. It is also dedicated to the men and women who serve in our military, to those who have served since the founding of this nation, to those who will serve in the future. And we dedicate to them this song, Last Call, by Dave Bray. God bless them all.
Tell her I'm sorry. That I can't be the man that she's gonna be. Tell her I'll be waiting where the winter meets the fall. This is my last call. Tell my children that I love them. Oh yeah, that daddy always loved them so. Tell them to hold their mother tight and to never let her go. Tell them I'll always be watching, looking over them through it all. This is my last call. Tell them to fight for me. Do what's right for me. Choose the light for me. But don't ever forget me. Tell them I'll always be my last
That's Dave Bray, Last Call, and you can check out his music by going to davebrayusa.com. And we're back. This is Southern Sense, here live on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, The Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina, Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, and what the heck. Just go to our website. It's the name of the show. The show. Put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. And I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie, along with my co-host and author, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Curtis, it is time to rock and roll. We've got ourselves some great guests today, and the first one is up in the batter's box. Shall we welcome aboard?
All right.
Right. He is the host and founder of politicalislam.com. And let's welcome aboard Dr. Bill Warner. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
I have to apologize. Normally I have your website up in the show description, but for some reason Blog Talk Radio has been playing games with my mind, and half the stuff I put up on the show page disappeared. So I will correct it. It will go back up because, the majority of people that listen to our show listen to the podcast later on in archives, and I want to make sure that they do go to your website because it is a powerful and informative one.
Well, thank you so much for appreciating it. It took a little time to get there.
Well, it's taking a lot of us a long time to get to where you're at, and I swear I have even a much longer road to go down. You've got some great books, and I think I'm going to start ordering some of them because I didn't realize that you actually have an educational series that people can take, sit at home, and and read through them and truly learn what Islam is actually about.
Well, not only do I have 2 self-study courses. I'm a former college professor, and the easiest job I ever did in my life was to lecture. It was like, you mean I actually get paid for standing up here and talking? Because I'm kind of fond of talking. So, but I realized that people need to be literally led by the hand through the learning of Islam, because everything in Islam contradicts what you think it should be. You think, well, if it's a religion, then the man who heads that religion is going to advocate the telling of truth. But no, he advocated deceit. And so you would think that a religion would be devoted to saving lives, not taking lives. So Islam is so contradictory. I found that a lot of people's wires just kind of wouldn't accept the information, and so you need to lead them through it step by step. And so that's what I've tried to do, so that you can sit down at home and learn it on your own in your own way. And, by the way, starting about next week, we're going to open up the first web-based educational system on political Islam. There'll be courses you can sign up and take, talk with other course members, see how the material's applied. So we're going to create the first web-based self-study course.
Wow.
Which is exciting.
That is fascinating because last year we had a local Unitarian church, and that should speak volumes just by saying it's a Unitarian church, holding Love Thy Muslim Neighbor. And the fact that these people were taking the word of these individuals at face value and not delving into the truth behind what was being told to them, I found mind-boggling. I could not believe that they were being so gullible, so naive, and in fact stupid, in my opinion, that they would take them at this word. Oh no, Sharia law will never replace the Constitution, as the Imam was raising the Constitution over his head. And I did not believe a single word. And I was not the favorite person in the room on that day.
Well, there's something interesting here. I had a Pakistani Christian tell me this, because I've dealt a lot with, this is all that I do, deal with political Islam, and so that naturally puts me in front of some Christian leaders and Jewish leaders. And Christians love to say, we need to love our enemies. But I had a Pakistani Christian say this to me. He said, if you love a Muslim, you will take away his Quran. If you love a Muslim, you will take away his Muhammad. If you love a Muslim, you will destroy his Sharia. Now, he doesn't mean run up and grab him out of their hand, but he does mean that you should explain to a Muslim exactly who Muhammad was, because they have no idea. Or if they do, they're not going to tell you in public. So, now deception is part of Islam, Islam is quite clever. As a matter of fact, clever, shrewd, and tough. And I find that most Christian leadership are simply professionally ignorant. You can learn more about Islam by just scanning the news headlines than these people will admit to knowing. So I call the clergy professionally ignorant. Now, I live in a town called Nashville, Tennessee, in which it used to be called the Buckle on the Bible Belt, but the church's pants are so far down around their ankles that no one calls it that anymore.
It's amazing because I reported about 2 years ago that the number of schools that have to have an Arabic interpreter in there to cater to this influx of immigrants and refugees in the Nashville area is astounding. Here you would think they would bleed the Bible, but it's not true anymore. And the school district cannot handle this burden of the influx of these immigrants. And in Nashville, of all places, as you said, the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Well, that doesn't mean much here anymore because the clergy here, let me give you an example. There was a lecture given by the Muslim Brotherhood at Vanderbilt University, and this so-called FBI counterterrorist expert spoke, and she's now retired, and we had our own expert, a retired FBI agent of 34 years himself. And so he stood up when she got through talking and asked her if she'd ever read the Sirah, the Hadith, or the Quran. Well, it turned out she had not, and she became a little angry when he said that. But the Muslim Brotherhood operative, when he closed the program down and just said, send everybody home, he said, we need to understand, this was mostly young Muslims at this, that as Muslims we're winning the civilizational war in the United States. He says we're migrating, we're having more children, and he says most importantly, the evangelical Christians now accept us as a brother religion. This is spoken in Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. The evangelical Christian leadership has now accepted us as a brother religion. Enough said?
Yeah. And I have to admit, our church last year, a friend of mine who happens to work for NCIS, those that watch TV knows exactly what I'm talking about, the Naval Criminal Investigation Unit locally here. And he and his wife put together a series teaching the truth about Islam. So our church is not following the lambs to slaughter. Thankfully, there are those of us that are out there that are still fighting the truth about Islam. And I think everyone out there within the sound of my voice has got to learn what the truth is. How the Taqiyya and Kidman is actually pulling the wool over everyday American lives. I mean, I was watching, of course, I'm sure everyone was glued to the TV with these riots that were going on in North Carolina, and standing front and center was this imam. And I swear, I wish I could have reached through the TV and slapped him silly. But that's kind of being a little unchristian of me, but that's what I wanted to do, honestly.
Well, I tell you, in my opinion, Christianity is suffering from the cancer of nice. Christians have become so nice. If you rape a Christian woman in the Middle East, Christians here are so nice they won't even recognize it and talk about it. If you kill Christians in Africa, the Christians here are so nice that they don't want to bring up an embarrassing subject. So, it strikes me that as I watch people read Scripture, they usually take nothing away from it except what they brought to it. But one of the things that I point out to Christians is that Jesus was not a nice man. As a matter of fact, he was hated and despised. And I love to ask Christians, so who hates you? And don't tell me the devil. I want a name and a face and a zip code and address and a telephone number. Who hates you? And if no one hates you, and if you're not upsetting the authorities, really, what are you doing?
We've got a lot of people up in the chat room posting, and one of them happens to your friend, Kel, and she's saying we're killing ourselves with our own altruism, and that is the God's honest truth. But it is. I mean, a Muslim will know more about what's in the Bible than a Christian will. That's the truth. But a Muslim will not know what's in the Quran.
Had a man write me, he said, my 14-year-old daughter is being approached by a Muslim on the school bus who's trying to convert her to Islam. Now, here's an important point. He is exactly and precisely correct. He is trying to convert her to Islam, and here's the deal. He receives training in how to convert Christians called dawah, D-A-W-A-H, dawah. he has a game plan that he's executing. He knows how to refute arguments. He knows what she's going to say. He knows how to push back. So why is it that a young Muslim male knows how to convert Christians, but this sweet young Christian girl has never been taught anything by her church about anything about Islam? For instance, she has never had explained to her what a Sharia marriage is. There are Christian women marrying Muslim men, and they have no idea what's in the future for them. That I condemn their leadership in their churches for. But our church leadership is just about nickels and noses. They just want to see somebody in the pews, and they're not going to upset anybody. I've even had ministers say that. Oh, no, we never say anything from the front of the room that will offend anyone sitting in the church. Well, really? And you're bragging about that?
You know,
I would agree with.
Go ahead, Curtis.
I would agree with you, Dr. Warner. I've known friends of mine who married Arabs and went overseas to the Middle East to live, and that's when they really saw the full weight of Islam come down on them as far as how they conduct themselves as wives and their position as a wife and who controls the children. Matter of fact, a couple of them tried to leave those countries over there, and the men were able to hold on to their children. And women would come back here and have to try to, through diplomacy or whatever, get the kids back.
Good luck.
Well, no,
our own government will not represent you.
No, and that's the truth, because I have a friend of mine who did escape, and she's living happily in North Carolina with her husband and her son. And what happened to her was she fell in love with this guy of Arabic descent, a Muslim, and she was over in France, young, naive, and she became pregnant. And what he did was he returned home, and I believe it was Lebanon he went home to, and he conned her into going to him. So once she was there, he held her captive. And then when she gave birth, she could not leave, nor her son. And her son was being taught radical Islam by the father. And she was doing her best to keep him as a Christian. Thankfully, she had some friends that helped her after a number of years to escape with her son. But she had no help from the American government whatsoever. And to this day,
the American government will represent... The American government will represent the Saudi husband abuser, wife beater, because they don't want to be hater, bigot, racist Islamophobes.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, she is in the process of writing about her experiences, and thankfully her son grew up to be a very productive American and happens to be serving in the United States Marine Corps. So obviously the family didn't have that much influence on him, and she had more. But God bless her. Yet no one is talking about women like this that end up having the children taken away from them by their Muslim fathers, and they never see them again.
I know of a case. I know of a specific case with a specific woman. She approached her priest. She was a Catholic, about should she marry this Muslim man. And he said, oh, yes, it will bring the religions closer together. Well, he was a wife beater, and she finally left him. And he, in court, argued that under the Sharia, the children should be given to him. And the judge in Memphis, Tennessee, did so. And he left 48 hours later and has never been back to America.
And that's
this was a judge.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've got judges supporting Sharia law. But had it been the other way around... Go ahead.
But the real key here is, why did her priest not know enough about Sharia marriage to tell her, do not do this, it will end badly? Oh, and by the way, I am being very harsh with religious leaders. I always need to put in a little footnote right here. When I condemn Christian and Jewish leadership, and I'll condemn Hindu and Buddhist leadership as well, I'm only condemning 95% of them.
Only 95.
There's about 1 in 20 who actually has a backbone.
Yeah, well, this brings us around to, why should we trust moderate Muslims? Are there really, truly moderate Muslims out there?
Well, if we're going to talk about Muslims, we have to ask, what is the measure of a Muslim? If you're talking about being a Christian, and you're a liar, a cheat, a thief, then I say to you, you're not a Christian, and the reason is I will point to Scripture and say, you're violating these commands. Okay? So if we want to talk about a Muslim, we should not go with our scale of, for instance, the Golden Rule or helping strangers, because those are our measures of what makes moderation. We should go only to the Islamic doctrine, and this is a distinction that I make with people. I do not discuss Muslims. I discuss the doctrine they follow. So we have to ask ourselves the question, what is a moderate Muslim? Well, they would follow moderate Islam. And what is moderate Islam? Moderate Islam is to imitate Muhammad and to follow the commands of the Quran. That is what makes you moderate. So therefore, if you're in northern Iraq and you have captured in a part of jihad, you've captured a Christian female, it is your moderation to rape her. You say rape is moderation? Yes, because Muhammad raped war captives. And in the Quran it says, those whom your right hand possesses, you can have sex with. Right hand possesses means they were captured in combat. So is rape of a Christian woman moderation? In Islam it is. And by our standards, this is an appalling violation of human rights. So when we say moderate, we have to put the scale to it. Driving at 70 miles an hour is moderate if it's on the interstate, but if you're going through a school zone, you've broken many laws. So we have to apply the rule before we can say whether it's moderate or not. Do I make sense to you?
Yes, because but what we call by our standards as moderate Muslim is then an apostate. And in actuality, they are not a practicing Muslim.
Yes.
So they are not following the doctrine, they're not following the teachings of Muhammad the way they should be, and therefore they are considered, by their standards, an infidel.
Or they could be deliberately choosing to appear moderate and yet hold within their heart the truth. You see, that's another way it goes. My favorite hadith reads like this: we smile at your face with hate in our heart. Think about what I just told you. We smile at your face with hate in our heart.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yet we're the ones accused of Islamophobia. And as my husband and I were watching TV a little while ago, he came up with something, and I kind of like modified it. Instead of Islamophobia, they're guilty of kafirophobia. Right? Yes. So why aren't we accusing them of being anti-Christian?
But when they say Islamophobia, most people focus on the phobia part, where you're saying I'm crazy. I focus on the Islam part. So, okay, you say I'm phobic about Islam. Well, which part of Islam am I phobic about? Am I that which allows Muslims to capture slaves? That which allows Muslims to kill kafirs? You're right, I am afraid of the idea that there is a jihad command to kill kafirs. And I am afraid of that, and I despise that, and I hate that. So you are quite correct, sir. I am an Islamophobe. I recommend it to you.
Well, I'm one of the adorable deplorables. Go ahead, Curtis.
Hey, as you know, we have Louis Farrakhan and the Nation Islam, and they have a form of Islam that they practice. Do you see the two as being compatible, or do you think if ever Islam, the traditional Islam from the Middle East gets over here, they will wipe out the type of Islam that Farrakhan practiced?
I don't normally get in the prediction business, but I'm going to make a prediction. After Louis Farrakhan dies, the Sunni Muslims, the Wahhabis, will take over his empire. They're just patiently waiting. He's useful for them. Muslims the doctrine of Islam is highly practical. It is civilizational war. It is not just jihad of the sword, but civilizational war. And they can advance their program in many, many ways. And I am the biggest admirer of the Muslim Brotherhood. They're so clever, shrewd, and tough. And they have plans that go out for decades and generations. But the kind of Islam that Louis Farrakhan practices would not be considered Islam it doesn't adhere to all of the Quran and the Sunnah. But what difference does it make? They're a form of Islam, and they strengthen the believer's hand.
Well, now, would we then say that Islam can never truly be changed, and then people like Dr. Zuhdi Jasser are actually dangerous to America?
Well, let's talk about this Islam we're going to change. The Islamic doctrine is found in the Quran, the Sirah, and the Hadith. Those are the three sources of the Islamic doctrine. We could say that the Bible of Islam is Quran, Sirah, Hadith. There is nothing more to be known about Islam than what is found in there. And if it's found there, it is Islam. So, therefore, we have to measure and I suddenly realized I got up on my sidebar here. Oh, Zuhdi Jasser. So is Zuhdi Jasser a form of moderate Islam, or is he simply a form of ignoring Islam? Well, I find that passes for moderation is simply saying, well, we don't practice that. We don't talk about that. We ignore that. So if Islam is the Quran, which the Quran is perfect, eternal, it was written down by Allah before the creation of the universe, it is complete. How does one reform a document which is perfect and complete and universal? How do you reform that? Muhammad's life has already been written down. How do you reform his biography, the Sirah? How do you reform his traditions, the Hadith? You can ignore them, but how do you change them? So how do you reform Islam? And let me ask you this. Why would you want to reform Islam? The people who call for reform normally are normally not the Muslim. Now, I'll admit that Zuhdi Jasser claims to be a Muslim, but have you ever looked at Zuhdi Jasser's audience? Does he go down to the Wahhabi mosque and preach his form of Islam? No, he does not. Zuhdi Jasser preaches his doctrine in front of the kafir, who wants to reform Islam? Not the Muslims. It's the kafir who wants it reformed. But how do you reform something? That's like saying we're going to reform triangles. A triangle, how do you reform a triangle? You can make another figure, but it's no longer a triangle.
Yeah, so once you attempt
so there is no reform possible.
Yeah, once you attempt to change Islam, then Islam no longer exists. But that's not going to happen because, unfortunately, because of the spread of Islam and because of the brainwashing, we're finding now in France, Germany, England, Christians and Jews converting to Islam. Completely ignoring.
And why shouldn't they? Here, let me give you an example. Why shouldn't they convert? Here in Nashville, Tennessee, the so-called Buckle on the Bible Belt, the head of the Bible department at Lipscomb University, which is a Church of Christ school, has proclaimed in print that he would never say that Christianity is a better religion than Islam. Well, if you're sitting in his class and he tells you that Christianity is not a better religion than Islam, they're equivalent. So what difference does it make whether you're Christian or Muslim? And you look and you say, well, this is the head of the Bible department at a university. Surely he knows what he's talking about. He's a professional idiot.
Absolutely, because as a Christian, to me there's only one God, and there's my God, and there's no one above him. So to Islam, Allah is God, no one is above him. But it's competing religions. It's not religions that can coexist. They're dipolar.
Well, look at the 1,400-year history. Over 60 million Christians have died in jihad over 1,400 years. But we don't want to know that. We don't want to study that. I speak with Christians who do not know that Iraq used to be a Christian nation. I speak with Christians who don't know that Egypt used to be a Christian nation. You would be appalled at the ignorance of Christians about the history of the church because, in their mind, Christianity did not start 2,000 years ago. Christianity started about with the foundation of America as a nation. So therefore, all of the things that came before America, Christians in this country know nothing, and so therefore they are foolish about history, and they will believe anything that's convenient. As you can tell, I'm not kind.
No, I don't blame you, honestly, because everyone turns around and blames America for all the problems, but Christianity and Islam has been at war since the birth of Muhammad. He has been fighting Christians and Jews from day one, and no one wants to admit that. And people even forget that Syria was the heart of Christianity at one point.
Listen, Damascus, which was the capital of Syria when it was captured, was the intellectual powerhouse of the Christian world. And yet Christians don't know that. No. The problem, Islam is winning, not because it is so good, but we're losing because we are so ignorant, so afraid, so compromised by political correctness. We'll do anything not to be hated. We'll be anything not to be told you're a bigot. And by the way, I speak to the world as I speak to you now. And what happens? I'm called a bigot, a hater, an Islamophobe, and a racist. And when you get through those four words, what have you got? Nothing.
I'll gladly ascribe to that club. It's not that I hate. It's just I hate the doctrine. And that people that will blindly follow it without even knowing what the heck they are following, without even taking time to do the research and see what is behind it. I can understand you're born into a family that is practicing this particular doctrine. I'm not even going to call it a religion because it's not. It's a geopolitical system, Islam is. I do not ascribe it to a religion. Matter of fact, it should be registered as a political party here in the United States. I've said that for a long time, but people don't want to accept that. But I grew up Roman Catholic, and when I looked at what the Catholic Church was doing, I stepped back and I said, whoa, wait a minute. This is not what I thought Christianity is about. So now I am a conservative Anglican. This is what I feel true Christianity is about because I did my homework and research, and I decided for myself. But the problem is with Islam, it doesn't allow you to decide your own destiny. And the more that idiots convert to Islam, the more they give away their rights and freedoms we all fought so hard for. I'm starting a rant. I'm sorry.
You know, the word freedom does not really exist in the Arabic language. They have a word which they say translates as freedom, but it means not a slave. Yeah, we have to understand. You see, you've revealed your secret ethnicity when you extol the virtues of freedom. Islam extols the virtues of a slave to Allah, Abdullah, slave, Abd, slave, Allah, slave to Allah, slave to the Sharia. Pure freedom in Islam is slave to the Sharia. So see, on something as simple as freedom, for instance, if you leave your present religion, you do not worry about having a car bomb or being killed or driven out of your community. But if you're a Muslim, you do not have the freedom to leave. That's apostasy. So, no. And by the way, one of the great tragedies that we see in the collapse of rational thought within the Catholic Church, the Jesuits used to be good reasoners, good with critical thought and logic. The Pope we have now, I guess, is still a Jesuit. I don't know if he ever stopped being one. And yet he shows himself incapable of using the facts of history and shows himself incapable of using any sort of rational thought. Instead, he's the big hug theory of rational thought. Oh, we just love everybody.
Well, it's funny because my pastor, when the Pope was finally installed, I asked my opinion about him. And I said, oh, the communist in Rome. And he looked at me and he goes, isn't that a little harsh? And I said, I'm a former Roman Catholic. I know what Catholicism should be. That is not Catholicism that he is practicing. That is not true Christianity. And he looked at me like I had about 5 different eyes on my face. And he says, no, watch what he does and watch what he says. And this is what the Catholic Church has become, an arm of the Communist Party. But am I wrong?
Well, I don't usually reveal this, but in my house we call him the hippie commie Pope.
But it's true. I was just going to want to make this one point, Chris.
I don't usually do name calling, but I think he deserves it.
Yeah, but I said, look at how Islam has aligned itself with Nazism and with communist countries. Look how closely, because
they're good.
Their geopolitical makeup of Islam was what Hitler set his socialist party upon. He used their standards. Please tell me where there's a difference between the two. Why did Muslims fight side by side with the Germans in World War II? Why did they help set up the internment camps for the Jews? But yet this is something they don't want to pay attention to.
And by the way, you've mentioned the Jews, and I've condemned Christian clerics for being professionally ignorant. Well, the Jews have a PhD in professional ignorance because the Quran says occasional good things about Christians. Now, when it finally gets through at the end in Surah 9, it takes all of the good things it's talked about away. But I've read Mein Kampf and counted the paragraphs of Jew hatred in Mein Kampf. 7% of the paragraphs are devoted to Jew hatred. I've read the Quran. There is more Jew hatred in the Quran than there is in Mein Kampf. But you try finding a rabbi who knows this, because if you think the Christians are professionally ignorant, like I say, the Jews have PhDs in professional ignorance. They excel in the denial of the Jew hatred doctrine of Islam. And you're quite right. It was the Mufti from... When you read Mein Kampf, Hitler never once offers to kill a Jew. Interesting. Most people don't know that. He condemns the Jews, but he does not say they should be harmed or killed. It was only after meeting the Mufti of Jerusalem who explained to him how that Muhammad had taken care of the Jews, which was killing 800 of them in one day under the sword and buried them in the soil of Medinan marketplace. So anyway, I got off on a rant here because Islam has a special hatred for the Jew. They call them apes and pigs, rats. And yet the Jew is not offended by this because they remain ignorant about it, deliberately ignorant.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Dr. Warner.
Yes, sir.
Do you think we need another crusade? And if so, what form should it come today?
I think we do need a crusade, and there needs to be a crusade of knowledge, a crusade of strength, a crusade of wisdom and courage. We need to face the fact that there are facts to be known about Islam, and we need to face the fact that the Christian church has given up on its Great Commission. As a Muslim, you're never in a safer space than in Middle Tennessee, which used to be called a Protestant Rome, because your Islam is totally safe here in Middle Tennessee. No Christian is going to try to convert you. No Christian is going to preach the Great Commission to you. We have Syrian refugees being brought into Middle Tennessee, and they're brought in by Christian organizations which sign a contract that they will not preach the gospel to these Muslims. Let me repeat that. Christians sign a government document that they will not preach Jesus to these people. Therefore, in Middle Tennessee, the church renders unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and they render unto Caesar that which is God's.
You know, get me started.
I say that a change needs to be made.
Yeah, get me started on the refugee resettlement program. Oh, good Lord. Matter of fact, it is my state that we have the lawsuit going against the Council of Spartanburg-Greenville. Matter of fact, my friend happens to be the attorney for it, Lauren Martell, is going from the council all the way on up to the White House that has named in this lawsuit to stop the refugee resettlement program. Matter of fact, Sue from New Mexico sent me an email about Congress trying to defund the resettlement program. And I'm sorry, I didn't get to read the whole article, but I think there are several attempts of Congress to stop this refugee resettlement program. What these VOLAGs are doing, which are the voluntary organizations that are helping resettle these refugees into our communities without permission of local government, without the knowledge of local government, and yet local government and the taxpayers are responsible for these individuals. It is absolutely phenomenal, the amount of money that goes into this. There's more money that goes behind a single refugee than goes to one of our veterans.
Well, you have to keep your priorities in line. The veteran probably votes Republican, and the new refugee is going to vote Democrat. Do the math.
And that's a lot of math there. That's a lot of math, especially with the shortening of the pathway to citizenship. It used to be you had to wait years before you could go from an immigrant, a legal immigrant, to a legal citizen or a naturalized citizen. But look at the bomber, the Chelsea bomber, naturalized citizen. Oh, didn't he swear allegiance to the United States of America, or was that just a little bit more tequila?
Well, he can't swear allegiance to the United States and be totally meaningful to it because his first allegiance is to the Sharia, not our Constitution. We need to make that clear. Our Constitution proclaims that it is the highest legal authority in this continent. But Sharia says, no. You'll take a back seat. And, of course, our government administering the oath is not cared whether they have their, King's X, we used to call it. You could put it behind your back and you could tell a lie. They don't. The discussion we're having here is simply not going to be held anywhere within the immigration world. And by the way, let me tell you a little bit about the Syrian refugees. I go to Europe twice a year, getting ready to leave in about another month because I've got an educational organization over there that deals with political Islam. One of the men that I met is a former Muslim, and he is now preaches the gospel in Iraq. And he said, I have met the Syrian refugees, and he says, let me tell you about them. He says, first off, they're not from Syria. He said about 1 in 5 is from Syria. And how does he know this? They're all Arabic speakers, and you can understand the country a man comes from by the form of Arabic he speaks, the different dialects. He said, these are not, he said, they're mostly from Afghanistan, North Africa, but he says only 1 in 5 is from Syria. And he says, these are not refugees, these are economic migrants.
Yeah, we were discussing that on our last show, that they are economic migrants. And there's no such thing as an economic refugee. You can have a religious refugee, you can have a political refugee, you can have an ethnic refugee, but not an economic refugee. You're only coming here to make yourself a little bit better off than you were back home. You're not looking for freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom from persecution. You're looking for the almighty dollar, the American dollar. And, you know, Donald Trump got criticized when he said there should be a vetting system, a strict vetting system. And everyone's going, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. But what they don't know is back in, I believe it was 1895, Teddy Roosevelt put in a vetting system. Oh, I'm sorry, 1891. And it was the Immigration Act of 1891 that banned polygamists. He knew that every single Muslim believed in polygamy. So in order to keep Islam out of the United States from spreading, he said, well, if you're a polygamist, you cannot come to the United States. We are monogamous. It very cleverly done. Why can't we do that once again?
We're no longer clever. Political correctness has made us very unclever. We no longer really discuss issues. Let's take me as an example. When people do not argue against me. What they say is, I'm a racist, hater, bigot, Islamophobe. They don't tell me, Bill, you're understanding the Sunnah with regards to that hadith about Ashraf. Your understanding of that hadith is wrong. No. They never say anything like that. They never say anything when I say that the Quran is dualistic. They say, no, Bill, we don't even want to look at your rational understanding. We're just saying you're a bigot, hater, racist, Islamophobe. Let me give you another reason. I gave a talk in North Carolina, and the left showed up to condemn it, and the president of a local community college said about me that I am unbalanced and that I should never be given a forum anywhere to speak. Now let's go over this again. This man is the president of a college supposedly devoted to critical thought and fact-based reasoning. But what does he say about me? He says, oh, he's a racist, hater, bigot, Islamophobe. He's unbalanced. He calls me names and implies that I'm not well mentally. So what we need is rational thought here, not name-calling.
True. Now, we got a caller. Happened to be a former co-host of mine, a good friend of the show, Cool Mike. Cool Mike, welcome aboard. We've got Dr. Bill Warner with us.
Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this. I almost didn't want to call in because I'm just enjoying listening. I have 2 quick questions. Why do you feel, as Christians, we're so hesitant to retaliate? I mean, it's as you were talking about earlier, it just seems like they're so nervous about basically calling a spade. And secondly, with your experience, how is it Muslim? I have friends like that families are Muslim, but I mean they've never even been in a mosque. I mean, and like a lot of times their families don't even talk to them. I don't know if it's religious wise or whatever, but I mean they're basically just Americans, and I don't even think they know what a church service is. How does the family handle a kid like that who probably is looked at as an outcast?
Well, what you're saying is, if I understood you correct, that we have a Muslim child who never goes to the mosque?
Well, yes. Not only that, I mean, I don't think he knows. I don't think any of them know anything about religion. I mean, like I say, I'm going to church, and
you have
they don't know anything about that either.
You've now met what's called a moderate Muslim. He doesn't practice Islam. When I was in Kosovo, I've been to the Balkans. When I was in Kosovo, I was very interested to be there because if you look it up in Wikipedia, I think it says it's 90% Muslim. Well, as soon as we got to Kosovo, we stopped the car and got something to eat at a roadside restaurant where we had pizza with pork sausage on it. We could buy gambling tickets, and you could buy a beer or a shot of whiskey. And I said, this is a Muslim nation? No. It is formerly a Muslim nation, and now then many of the Muslims that they have now, their grandfather was a Muslim, and so they call themselves Muslim, but they don't practice Islam. And that's the key. Not what you call yourself, but what do you practice. Not what in other words, what's your name, not what is your name for yourself, but what do you actually do. In Kosovo, they no longer practice the religion of Islam, but there's a change happening. The Wahhabi Saudis are there. They're building new mosques. They're bringing in new imams. And there's a new kind of mosque in Kosovo. And the people who attended on Friday are young males, and they not only fill up the auditorium, they fill out the street and the sidewalk. True Islam is now coming to Kosovo. And after it's been there long enough, Kosovo, you won't be able to get pork on your pizza, let me tell you that. And you won't be seeing those beautiful Muslim women with their long hair walk down the street. They'll be burked up. So the difference between being a Muslim and just calling yourself that as a name and being a practitioner of Islam is like the difference between night and day.
So you're seeing then...
Wow. And second question was in regards to, I'm a Roman Catholic. I'm always speaking, I call a spade. Why is it, I mean, I don't know. You had mentioned the Pope earlier. Why is it they're just so chicken shit? I mean, what's the matter with them? Well,
you can tell we're not politically correct here.
Well, I just don't get it. I mean, you're at the breaking point, and you're still trying to look for reason. I just don't understand it.
I don't either. Those who stay in this business very long always say this: I'm now beginning to understand how people thought in Nazi Germany. They weren't thinking at all. They were afraid to think and afraid to speak. But we are no longer reasonable people. And if you do try reasoning and fact-based reasoning, then they just call you names. And this is, our nation, our civilization is built on two cornerstones. There's the cornerstone of ethics called the Golden Rule, and there's the cornerstone of thought called critical thought. We're now throwing away critical thought. And once you throw away critical thought, you're no longer able to do fact-based reasoning, which means you no longer are realistic. And what happens to people who are not realistic? One day reality catches up with them and delivers them a punishment they will not forget. And that's what I'm concerned about. We're playing with dynamite here. We're playing with civilizational dynamite and smiling and saying, it doesn't matter.
Well, Dr. Warner...
just a quick, Annie, I want to tell you a quick message. I'm going to send you this, Annie. This is how horrible. 2 weeks ago, basically in our county is Kent County. The adjacent county is Ottawa County, and they share an athletic conference called the OK Conference, Ottawa and Kent County. They have banned chanting USA, USA, USA because it's insensitive. And now I'm going to take them to court. I mean, I'm not standing for this. And I begged people to get involved with me, including Justin Amash, who's too much of a sissy, our congressman, to get involved.
Oh, my. See, what I would do is I'd go to the...
They said it was insensitive.
See, insensitive. You know what I would do? Now, I'm a 75-year-old redneck hillbilly. I would go to the games and shout USA, USA, just so they could arrest me and haul me off.
Hello?
I protested.
Yeah, all right.
I protested.
This is Herb London. How are you?
Yeah, Dr. Warner, we have our next guest on, Dr. Herb London. Would you like to stay with us as we continue the discussion of Islam?
If I stay with you, I won't be able to edit my next
I thought that I was going to be on chatting now because I'm in a rather awkward situation.
All right, Dr. London, I've got you with us. All right, Dr. Warner, I want to thank you for joining us. Your website is politicalislam.com. I'm going to send people over there. I'm going to update the description, and people will check out your website. Thank you for joining us.
That would be great. Okay, we don't have to engage in the conversation. Hello?
Dr. London, I've got you with us now. I'm with you, Dr. London.
Okay.
I got you.
As I said, it's not going to be long. Okay.
All right. I apologize. Our conversation was going a little bit long with Dr. Warner because we're talking about Islam and its effect on the United States, and I'm glad that you were with us. You've got a new book out called The Encyclopedia of Militant Islam that people can pick up. Tell us about that new book that you co-wrote.
The book deals with a variety of terrorist groups across the globe. This is a long war. We have to understand the enemy. The enemy comes in many different forms. All of the enemy is, of course, desirous of having the caliphate and Sharia, which is more than simply law but a way of life, and, of course, using jihad as a methodology. But our view is that it's very important for people to understand that this is an ideational war. We're not only fighting this war with bullets and tanks, we're fighting this war with ideas. And so our ideas have to counter theirs. We have to be able to understand what the Islamic world is trying to do, the radical Islamic world is trying to do, and be in a position where we can counter it. We use the Cold War as a template. That is dirty tricks, clandestine opportunities, penetrating cells, the sort of things that we did effectively in the Cold War, we can do again. But it's necessary for us to do that.
Now, in your book, in the epilogue, you and your co-authors pointed out that the ideological war is why we've lost in Iraq, why we're losing in Afghanistan, because we're doing it with boots on the ground instead of countering the ideology. So what would you suggest we do to
this is critical. I mean, look, this is what has to be understood. Boots on the ground may be necessary to deal with the safe zones of the enemy. But if ISIS is defeated tomorrow, we would still have to deal with militant Islam. And militant Islam is a greater threat. The threat will exist over a generation. It's not going away. And when I say ideas, I'm talking about using the culture, using what America stands for, using our alliances, using our clandestine operatives, penetrating the cells of so many of those in the Islamic world, understanding what they are trying to do and being able to define it. These are the characteristics that will be successful in the long ideational war.
Now, here, the political correctness says that we no longer monitor mosques. So consequently, we had this past weekend, which happened to have been Constitution Weekend, September 17th, the day that our U.S. Constitution was ratified. And it was a specific date that they chose to attack in New Jersey, New York, Minnesota. But we don't monitor the mosques, so what do we do if the political correctness...
Well, we have to engage in surveillance that we're not engaged in at the moment. And in fact, we have to engage in profiling, even if we don't call it that. There is no question. You don't go into a nursing home with 75-year-old women and say, we're going to engage in surveillance. You do surveillance where you suspect there's a problem. And the problem does exist in many mosques in the United States. And we've got to understand the national security is as important as the First Amendment. We can't let people die on the streets because of political correctness. So we've got to face the facts that there are people who want to kill us, and we've got to be prepared to engage in the necessary surveillance.
Well, unfortunately, CARE is out there, and they've they put themselves into all of law enforcement on all levels, whether it's local, state, federal. They're inside the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, you name the alphabet soup, and they have their influence in there. So how do we get them out of there so that we can do our job?
Well, first of all, we have to challenge CARE using the lawfare that they use. Just as they use lawfare in order to penetrate the United States institutions, we have to make it very uncomfortable for them. Bring lawsuits against them on a regular basis. Harass CARE, because they are an extension of the Muslim Brotherhood. They stand for the Muslim Brotherhood ideas. And it is the Muslim Brotherhood that stands out as the father and mother of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They provided the original funding for Al-Qaeda. So when you're talking about what CARE stands for in the United States, it was a co-conspirator, an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation case. We know all about what their tactics are. We've got to do everything in our power to make life uncomfortable for CARE in America.
Well, we're looking at... Go ahead, Curtis. I was going to ask...
I've got to end this interview. I'm terribly sorry. But I would love to continue with you, but unfortunately I have another obligation. So please excuse me.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr.
Can we continue it another time? I would love to do it.
Yes, I'll get a hold of Jonathan and have you back on.
Thank you so much. I'm terribly sorry.
Okay. All right, Dr. Herb London, check out his website, londoncenter.org. Curtis, what were you going to ask him anyway, so we can go on with the discussion?
Well, I was going to mention that the Muslims are pretty much infiltrating our military. And not only with Muslims, but, they're doing it by political correctness as always. And wanted to ask him what he felt about that and how we could reverse that, and also what he felt about Donald Trump, and if he thought that Trump could be the one to help turn things around in this country when it comes to Islam.
Well, I unmuted Cool Mike.
I know that
Well, I apologize. I thought we would have him on for the rest of the show, and unfortunately, it was obvious from his demeanor that he wasn't going to share the stage with Dr. Warner. So I apologize to the listeners out there. I thought we'd have a little bit more, and I'm going to have to call Dr. Warner a little bit later on and give him my apologies for having to cut him short, because it was extremely... I think we could have done the entire show with Dr. Warner alone, Mike and Curtis. But there's so much we have to talk about.
It happens. He was obviously a very smart person, but rude as hell. I mean, there's something to be said about what Curtis just mentioned, and I wonder if that's going to come up on Monday, because clearly you have two different candidates with what the topic is today here that have two different ideologies about how to address this issue. One is almost not addressing it at all, or I'm really not sure what Senator Clinton or Ambassador Clinton's idea is, but another one is by addressing it extremely severely, almost like a kind of the war on terror.
Mm.
So it is. I mean, it raises a good question that you put out there, Curtis.
Yeah, well, we know Hillary will capitulate. The thing is, with Trump, you never know. But, I put my money on him.
Well, I would put my money on
here's
Trump,
an interesting question, too. Here's an interesting question coming up to the debate. I think I think there's an elephant in the room, and we're all wondering if Trump's going to really do something crazy. But here's also another thing. What if he is just totally the Donald Trump we know he can be, shrewd, smart, and she has an attack, or she's tripping out or coughing, or because no matter what the case may happen, she's kind of protected in a way by the feminist thing.
Hmm.
Well, I think if she has an attack, I think it's over for her politically.
No, no chance, Curtis. There's just the mass propaganda is just out there. They've already have the stories if she were to even collapse. That Donald Trump's been rude, and because of that, he bullied her into a stroke or something. There's no chance.
Well, I'm just going by the fact that her numbers went down after that incident on 9/11.
Well, it's going to be interesting because she's running saying, you've got to vote for me because I'm a woman. And yet she's saying you're attacking me because I'm a woman. You're being mean. So what is it? You want me to vote for you because you're a strong woman, or people are being mean to you? You can't have it both ways, lady. You can't play the feminist card two-sided. Pick one and stick with it. And I'm not going to vote for you simply because you don't have a set of balls between your legs. But then again, Lord knows what's underneath those pantsuits anyway. So...
Think about it. Both of those guys had big egos, her and Obama. I mean, it was Obama who said the black community doesn't, vote for Hillary to be an insult to him.
Right. And Cal put it up in the chat room. Hillary's wondering why she's not 50 points ahead of Trump. As a matter of fact, Sweet Sue sent me that article that I took to look at. She's crying, how come I'm not further ahead in the polls? Maybe because you're probably the most hated woman in America and running for president. Seriously. The day last week or the week before when she had her episode, first it was, she was dehydrated. Then it was the flu. Then it was pneumonia. You know what? Just say it. Say, so I'm feeling like, you just never get a straight answer out of these people. It's almost as if they lie so much that they almost don't even know how to say the truth. No, and what is really weird is if anyone has ever had pneumonia, pneumonia is infectious until you get to that one point where, your phlegm is now clear. Don't mean to be gross to anyone, but pneumonia is infectious. And you cannot recover from pneumonia within a day or two. So here she has this infectious pneumonia. She disappears into her daughter's apartment, what happens to also be the address of a medical corporation. The same floor, the same apartment is a medical corporation address. You think there's a little small medical suite in Chelsea's apartment there? She disappears for 2 days, and all of a sudden she comes out miraculously cured. Something stinks out there, folks. Something stinks to high heaven.
It sounds like an episode. It sounds like an episode from Mission Impossible.
Oh, well, that was good, Kurt.
Mr. Phelps.
Well, okay.
Should you choose this mission?
Here's a question.
Yeah.
And here's a question. And Rush, this is kind of Rush's question of the day, is that if she does have an episode, whether she's coughing a lot or whether she collapses or whatever, what should Trump do? Because in many, many ways, if he almost does anything, that baits it into what we were just talking about. Well, he was trying to intimidate her or whatever. If something's to happen, I think they'll have staff ready. But apparently there's going to be no breaks, no commercials, nothing. It's going to be straight through.
And, when they
straight through debate.
When they chose to do the debate on Football Monday, during the time Green Bay was supposed to be playing, I was tossing back and forth. All right, am I going to have to do picture-in-picture, watch Green Bay while I'm listening to the debate? But, Mike, I got to say, after Green Bay did such a horrific game against their chief rival, the Vikings, last week, I don't know if I can watch Green Bay this week. So I'm going to be stuck with the fight on the stage of the debate.
Well, and I think in many, many ways they purposely put this debate on Monday because they know an awful lot of people just will watch the game or channel surf, and which basically means they miss half of it.
Well, considering the person
I'm going to the movie theater. The movie theater has it on the big screen.
So you don't miss a single soundbite. Actually, I would suggest you TiVo it.
Plus, there'll be a lot of Grand Rapids registered voters there, so I'll get a chance to, to do my thing. But still, on the same token, is that okay? If Trump is forceful in his words and she collapses, are people going to look at if Putin or someone else gets forceful with her, is she going to collapse, or are they going to say, oh, he's a bully, and we all know bullying is wrong and. Yeah, you're in a lose-lose situation because very well Rachel Maddow is not going to say, "Oh, Mrs. Clinton is ill and she's ill-fated to be president." That's never going to come out of her mouth.
No, it won't. But it'll be interesting which Donald Trump shows up on the stage. The one that's smirking and everything else, or the one that's going to look presidential. And a matter of fact, his son Eric was on Fox. Outnumbered today, and I think we're going to be seeing a different Donald Trump up there, honestly.
I hope so, but I doubt it. I really fear this is the end. I fear they're just, whatever you can say, the Clintons aren't stupid, and I really fear. Oh man, I don't even want to think about it, but you can just imagine. All it takes is one wrong thing and Trump to go insane, and that's that.
Well, I'm hoping that's not what's going to happen. And I was looking for an article because, here we go. There is some people that are starting to seriously question whether or not she has a neurological disease such as Parkinson's. And even Rand Paul was questioning that, asking that she does have a medical exam, a neurological exam. So the calls are coming out there. Jerome Kersey wrote an extensive article back on the 19th on Front Page where he's questioning, whether or not she does have Parkinson's or some other neurological disease. So the calls are going out there for her to, explain herself. Explain yourself, lady.
Man, I hope she never interviews. I hope she interviews with you, Annie. Yeah, you'll chase her off just like you did Michelle Bachmann.
That was a chase. That was a run. That was a run. And also, there's coming out reports, and even Trump has picked this up, about the Clinton Foundation when they had the what the heck was that hurricane in Haiti in 2010, where Haiti was rocked so badly. What is the media is not reporting is between 2010 and today, people are still living in tents. All this money the Clinton Foundation raised never went to the people in Haiti, never rebuilt their homes, never rebuilt their towns. For 6 years, these people have been living on the side of a mountain or in the streets in tents. For 6 years.
Is anyone really surprised? Come on. Does this shock anybody? Seriously.
A former president...
Well, those people haven't forgotten it.
No. The former president...
And I think...
Well, I was going to say the former president, I'm going to mispronounce his name, Bernard Sansurik, he's the former president of Haiti, stated, sadly, when the earthquake rocked the nation of Haiti in 2010, corruption moved faster than help so desperately needed. Today, the people of Haiti are still suffering despite the billions of dollars that have flowed into the Clinton Foundation. The Clintons exploited this terrible danger to steal billions of dollars from the sick and starving people of Haiti. The world trusted the Clintons to help the Haitian people during their most desperate time of need, and they were deceived. The Clintons and their friends are richer today, while millions still live in tents. The world deserves to know where the money went and why help was never sent. Wow.
Just for the record, remember who was doing the commercials with them? That worthless, useless family, the Bush family. I mean, I can still see George Herbert Walker and Clinton with those sap-sucking commercials where you knew they were both a bunch of swindlers.
Well...
Yeah, I don't think people realize how close those two families are, the Bushes and the Clintons.
They're corporates. I mean, they're just corporates. That's all they are. And I don't mean that in a bad way because we're all pro-business, but that's all they are. It's Bush LLC, meaning limited liability company. If you sue them, you get killed. The Clintons are even worse. They'll massacre your whole family.
We had Roger Stone on and Rob Morrow, the two that co-authored the book Clinton's War on Women. And if you read his book, he states that Barbara Bush calls Bubba her other son. That is how close the families are. So there is close ties between the Bushes and the Clintons. So technically you can say George W.'s presidency was just another term of Bill Clinton in some effect. But matter of fact, there was a picture up on Twitter. Someone put up an aide to Hillary Clinton taking a photograph with George Sr., stating that George Sr. was going to vote for Clinton up on Twitter. As soon as that hit, that came down so damn fast. It came down so damn fast because the Bushes said, no, you can't say a Republican's going to vote for Clinton, even though he just might do it anyway.
Who tweeted that again? Someone was at a fundraiser. I heard it was someone popular, like a Kennedy or somebody.
Yeah, it was one of the Kennedys. Was it Carolyn Kennedy?
Yeah, I mean, let's be realistic, okay? Let's be honest. The Republican end of the Never Trumpers are voting for Hillary. I mean, it's that simple. The true colors are really emerging, and I still don't think the Bernie people are going to go with Hillary. I think. Thank goodness for Wiki really leaking the info. And I find it unbelievably amazing that this is something I've said all along. And if you remember, there's an awful lot of people on Blog Talk that were upset when I said the same thing, is that these people are, the only difference is the D and the R. Other than that, their political agendas are virtually the same. We're just blind to that. I mean, we wear this football jersey or we wave this flag of damn Republican. We're clueless to the fact that it's the two sides of the same coin.
Well, I think that's why Trump is becoming so popular, because everyone is seeing it's just two sides to the same coin, and Trump is outside the box. Yeah. He's not a political insider. He is a businessman. He is a successful businessman, and any successful business person knows that somewhere along the way, you're going to end up having a business failure. You're going to go through a series of failures before you find that success. So what? It's the way business works. He knew how to game the system to make it work. He knows how to fix the system because he was able to game the system. That's why you need him in there. Go ahead, Curtis.
That's what I was going to say. Trump, he knew the game they played. So That's why they're so afraid of him, because he's going to expose their, their little system and destroy it. He has the potential to destroy it.
If you think about this, yeah, you're right, Curtis. If you think about this, let's go back, say, a year ago. Let's start out with Trump. Not only did the Republicans go after him with everything, but they really tried to smear, Hillary calls them deplorables, but they really tried to say, well, the people supporting Trump are really the trailer trash, uneducated people. We obviously know that's not true. And they've done an awful lot of those innuendos on, this is the Trump crowd, the uneducated and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, lo and behold, it didn't happen. Trump got the nominee. With Bernie, obviously, the fix was in from the beginning. But just think about this. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is telling people, let's expose him as a Jew. I mean, imagine that. The good, diversity, accepting, party that, doesn't discriminate. Let's expose the fact he's a Jew. He might be an atheist, too. I mean, think about that. What the hell? These laws or rules don't apply to any of these people. It only applies to you and I and Curtis and our groups.
Isn't she Jewish herself? True. Isn't Debbie Wasserman Schultz Jewish
herself? I believe she is. I don't know. I recently, this guy who's causing this, the guy who's causing all this commotion in my city over what happened at a football game is that these kids had a Trump sign. And he doesn't want to acknowledge that that's really what offended him. But they had a Betsy Ross flag. And so he writes a letter saying that Betsy Ross was a slave owner. And, of course, there's no proof of that. But, you know how they read blah, 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 blah. The superintendent of the opposing school issues a letter of apologizing. It was sickening. It was absolutely sickening. Well, anyway, on that note, I leave it to the candidate to write a reply. And I basically said that, these people, this is their agenda. Given the fact that there's no proof that Betsy Ross ever owned slaves, and chanting USA, USA, USA is not offensive. And I'll tell you something, too. We have an awful lot of African Americans and Latinos, just in general, what we call minorities. They're not, but we have a lot of those as veterans. We have a lot of them in active duty. That's insulting to me that a white liberal or social, whatever you want to call these progressives, whatever they call themselves now, would be they're the spokesperson for this sensitivity. That's rather insulting, because I think they're old enough to speak for themselves. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no,
that's true. I think they like to call themselves people of enlightenment.
that's a pretty modest claim. Well, this person writes a letter and says when they were waving the Betsy Ross flag. Oh, here's another thing: the team's colors are green and white. So when they were yelling "Go green, go white," he said the "Go white" he thought was offensive to the other team because they're primarily black athletes. And I'm thinking, what? I mean, I don't even think the athletes even hear the chants. I mean, they're playing the game. But I mean, go white. He's almost implying it as if it's, you know what I'm saying? He's trying to claim that it's, whatever it is. You feel the vibe I'm trying to say. It's just a crock of crap.
Well, Hope in the chat room was asking if Trump is leading in Ohio, and Ron put in there that Trump is 45 to Clinton 43.2. That's within the margin of error, which is normally about 4. So he's coming ahead in a lot of these polls, a lot of places that they didn't think he was going to do well, and he's still tied in Florida. But, Mike, polls can be read to say anything the pollster wants it to say. It depends upon how the question is asked and what the polling pool was asked. You know that. I know that. But if you look at the crowds that show up for Clinton rallies compared to a Trump rally, that should tell you exactly how the vote's going to go. These states that they're saying are wobbling, if you just look at the crowds, because if people are so motivated to show up for a Trump rally, stand there for hours waiting to get in, like you did, Curtis. You and your wife tried to get in. You had tickets, and you couldn't get in. That goes to say who is going to be motivated to go to the polls. But if you look at who's showing up at Clinton's rallies, how few people, you don't have the motivation. You don't see it.
I've been involved in politics for 15, 20 years now. I don't know. But anyway, long time. I have never in my life ever.
You're not that old.
Anyway, ever. I have never, ever, and I'll say ever again, been to anything like the Trump rally. I cannot even describe it to you two. I mean, it was it was almost like the filming of a movie. And afterwards, I mean, there was cheering throughout, and it was deafening. But afterwards, they basically stormed the area. They hoist Trump up. And, I mean, you think Secret Service and all this are panicking? No. Trump is, like, waving to the crowd, up, cheer. It's like, I'm like, I mean, he stayed for hours and hours to take pictures. And he actually was joking with some people, like, he'd take up, you walk up, you take your picture. Hi, Cool Mike. Hi, Dave. Hi, Jane Doe. Blah, blah, blah. Well, he actually was made fun of it when I said something like, I said, well, I want a picture or something like that. Well, anyway, this guy, Dan, who was next to me, also got his picture taken or whatever. And he said, we may be here another 2 hours. He says, hey, Dan, you're going to have to go out and get us some pizza. I mean, that's what it was like. And I thought to myself, oh, my God, this is just, you don't see that. You don't see that with, I don't know, I've never felt this before. And I seriously think he's going to win. As long as he does not, Monday is it. I'll tell you, I wouldn't, if he scores a home run on Monday, I would claim I have the flu and not do it anymore. But I'm worried she's gonna bait him. I mean, she's smart when it comes to that kind of stuff. She's a Sith Lord.
Well, Kel was asking.
I would go as far as to say that the media is underestimating the number of blacks that's going to vote for Trump. I know quite a few that won't come out publicly and say that they're going to vote for Trump. But, when we're alone, they'll whisper in my ears, I'm voting for Trump.
Well, I can tell you that rally I was at, Curtis, there was a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean, there was no hiding this. I mean, it was, I just cannot, honestly, I cannot, this was Team USA defeating the Russians in the 80s, but rather than a hockey game, Donald Trump was there. I just cannot continue. When I tell people this, I've just never seen anything like it.
Well, I got to tell you, we had someone that got arrested here in South Carolina, nearby in Hilton Head. A husband and wife, I guess, pulled up in a shopping mall, went in to do their thing. They had a Trump Pence sticker on their bumper. When they came out, they saw this woman trying to rip the bumper sticker off and then yelling at the couple, how dare you put that racist blah, 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 carrying on. And they get into a fight because this one couple had a Trump Pence bumper sticker. And they're trying to give away Trump Pence signs. But what's happening is people that are anti-Trump or pro-Hillary are going out and ripping the signs out of the lawns. They are absolutely rabid. But no one's touching the Hillary signs. You notice how our side, the right side, is being polite and says, all right, fine, you're trumping, you're supporting Hillary. All right, get on, whatever, and walk away. But God forbid you happen to have something with Trump Pence on it. All of a sudden, you're racist, Islamophobic, blah, 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 and go on with the whole invective names, and they try to steal your sign, take your bumper sticker off. Oh, good Lord, I'd hate to see what would happen if someone went past them with a Trump shirt on. Rip it right off their back? I can't.
There's a lot of vitriol out there.
I've never seen an election like this one. Never.
My signs are going to get ripped off, too. I ordered 200 of them, and I told my brother, I says, I'll put up about 120. The others will be replacements for when they get stolen. Of course, that's... Oh, I'm sorry, Curtis. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I do have a question for you, Andy, because I watched this the other night on Fox News, a situation going on in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm just curious what you thought of this, because I watched for 4 hours. The police maybe moved like half a block. It took them like 4 hours. And I was just wondering if you thought the tactics were the correct ones. You know, there were people throwing bricks at them, bottles, and things like that. Do you think they should have tried to arrest these people? Do you think they should have advanced even more? Do you think they were undermanned? I'm just curious from a law enforcement viewpoint. What you thought of the tactics?
Someone high up said, kit gloves. Handle them with kit gloves. Whatever you do, don't arrest. Someone said that. These guys had themselves handcuffed. Had that been a New York riot?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, those guys, their commanders need to go through the New York City Police Academy and learn the tactics. I mean, everything I saw had me going crazy. Not one officer used their baton.
Why is it they do that, Andy? I mean, why is it they do that? I understand for the protesters, but I mean, when they start looting and they're starting fires or they're in the middle of the expressway, how is it they do that kid glove stuff? I mean, that's insanity right there. And as I don't know if you guys heard the report, like 100% of the arrests are people who didn't even live in the state.
I don't think it was that high. I think it was something like 20% were people that did not, that were busted in. Matter of fact, they stopped a group coming from South Carolina from getting in there to join the protest. And that's when they put the curfew in effect. Because they heard this group was coming in to cause disruptions. But you got to remember, Baltimore mayor blocked off part of the city and says, you can go over there and loot. Just don't go over this side over here. We're putting these streets aside so you can go loot, cause fires, whatever. Have a free-for-all over there. They did the same thing in Ferguson. You can have these streets, these businesses, but leave everything else alone. What's that, Curtis?
Let them get it off their chest. That was the sentiment. Let them get it off their chest. And they loot and riot and burn and steal.
To allow but to allow the criminality, but to allow that criminality to not enforce the law jeopardizes the innocent civilians there. The people that own that business, they've lost everything. They've lost everything. Do you think they're going to be able to reopen? Do you think they're going to be able to get business insurance now? Do you think the rates of the business insurance is going to stay the same? No, it's going to get yanked through the sky. They have effectively destroyed a part of that city that will take years, if not decades, to come back. I mean, when I got to Brooklyn, the riots that occurred in the 60s and 70s, those buildings were still burnt out. Businesses never returned. Families lost their apartments. Those parts of the city, it wasn't until gentrification occurred more than 25 years after the riots. These people are looking at a long, long road to recovery, if the city ever recovers.
Here's something that, here's something to a point. Well, here's something that I want to make a point, and I feel like Hillary and Trump address these in such different ways, but a individual who's a progressive in our city, he posts on his Facebook, and this is amazing how many people just all shake their head, nod their head, and like the comment and agree with him, where he says, why is it that always when this happens, and I think he's obviously referring to a police officer shooting somebody. Normally they riot when it's a white cop, but it doesn't really matter because the cops are the enemy now. But the comment was, they always say, let's wait and see till all the evidence comes in. And I forgot what the other comment was, but I was like, oh, and they always like to say, well, what's the guy's criminal record? As if that matters. I'm thinking like, yeah, a person with a long criminal record, with a history of run-ins from the law, they're either going to die with a conflict with the police, with law enforcement, or die in jail or a drug overdose. But I commented underneath it, well, God forbid we should wait for all the evidence to come in. But I mean, this is just their typical mode. No matter what, the cops are always wrong, period. End of story.
No, it's as if a police officer is not a human being, that they're a machine, that they don't have family, they don't have feelings, that because they're human, they may make a mistake. You know, this poor woman, the female police officer out of Tulsa, I forget what her name is, her life is forever ruined because what it may have been a simple mistake. You know, yes, someone died, and yes, there's got to be some sort of cost to that on her behalf, but to the rush to judgment before evidence is fully in, before she's given her day in court, and she got indicted awfully fast. So someone's doing some fast backpedaling. Someone gave her up in a heartbeat. And a matter of fact,
well, I think they did that to appease the black community that's rioting.
Well, you know, matter of fact, there was a New York City police officer that got indicted because of the overreaction on the de Blasio side. Now the New York City Police Department, not New York City, the New York City Police Benevolent Association, which represents that officer, is suing because this officer wasn't given proper legal representation. His lawyer was yanked away from him. And, you know, had this been a civilian and you pulled a stunt like this, the civilian would have been suing. The case would have been thrown out of court. But because it's a police officer, it's a different standard. No, we're supposed to be...
I have said this 1,000 times, and I mean this. Oh, sorry, Annie, I didn't mean to cut you off. No matter who you are, no matter what the crime, no matter what race, religion, creed, whatever, our system is you must be proven innocent beyond reasonable doubt. And upon arrest or whatever charges, you are an innocent person until you are found guilty. And I said this when they arrested that guy from Penn State, who they had 40 charges of, you know, child molesting, and I've said this from the worst of murderers to whatever it may be. This individual officer, I don't know the circumstances, and to be honest, I'm losing track of all of these, whatever it is, because they become media spectacles. But no matter who you are innocent until proven guilty, period. Period. And until she is found guilty, this officer is to be presumed innocent. That's it.
Yeah, they don't have all the video footage available for the media to look at, and the media is screaming, but they're saying, release the tapes, release the tapes. Wait a minute. This is court evidence. This is court evidence. This is not public... I'm trying to think of the right word. The word just went right out of my mouth, my head. The point is, people may be guilty. They may be guilty. They may be innocent. That's for the court to decide. And I'm sorry to both of you. I didn't mean to cut you both off.
But it's protocol. What you were looking for?
What's that, Curtis?
Was it the word protocol you were looking for?
No. Now I forgot what I was trying to say, but I was saying this is evidence. If this was evidence for O.J. Simpson or Michael Jackson in their trial, no, you're not going to release it to the public, not until it's been presented to court, not until the judge and the jury gets to see it and make their determination. After the trial's over, then that's all part of the public record. Then you make it public, but not before. Do not jeopardize the trial. And you treat the evidence the same in every single case. You know, this is what I get.
Well,
one set of standards for one group of people.
They're just guilty. They're just guilty. You know, I am the biggest criticizer, and we can go back on me being your co-host. I'm the biggest criticizer of any government agent, police, whatever, when I feel an injustice is done. But clearly, all this is our media. These are individual cases where we must wait and find the trial will take its course. To just absolutely acknowledge that there is a guilt, and then here comes the verdict, and oftentimes the verdict is innocent, or they drop charges, etc. I mean, and then there's another injustice. I mean, that's just insanity. I mean, it's just, you know. Go ahead.
I would say this is almost becoming the new norm, where politicians want to wash their hands of things and say to law enforcement, go ahead and charge the officer, and we'll let the courts handle this. But we got to stop the rioting now. I think it's that kind of pressure that's being put, on situations like this, and we all know that they probably will be adjudicated innocent. And in most cases that went forward so far, all the officers that I know that's been involved have been adjudicated innocent. But I think right off the bat they want to assuage the black community just to get the rioting and stuff. So they go ahead and charge these officers, and I think that's wrong.
Well, look at the 5 officers in Baltimore. Every last one of them was exonerated. Every last one of them. And yet, in the court of public opinion, every last one of them was deemed guilty before they even had their day in court. But if a jury of peers, a jury of everyday citizens, could not find a reason to find any of those 5 guilty, then what does the media have the right to do? To continue to call them guilty? To continue to see their lives destroyed?
Well, these are great stories. I mean, these are wonderful ratings, and the advertisers love it. And that's what I believe this is all about. I'll give you another example. As you are watching some of MSNBC of all stations move a little bit more to the middle, simply because now they have some really cream of the crop advertised Republicans that never really, those companies never advertised with them before, but now that they're all in bed and against Trump, here's a nice $50 million advertisement if you could just move over a little bit. So they do it. And that's what this is all about. I mean, if you would think about it, why wouldn't you say in 14 of the last 15 cases, the police officers were exonerated? You never hear that. All you hear is, here's a new case. Let's hope this person's guilty.
Well, Mike, there's some breaking news here. There's some breaking news that's coming out because Gulf has put this in the chat room. Thank you, Ron. And Fly has put it up also. It looks like Ted Cruz is going to make an endorsement for Donald Trump. I said this was going to happen. I told everyone, I think it was like a week ago, that there were overtures being made between the Cruz camp and the Trump camp. And just before, I said it was going to be before the election. Fortunately, it's before the debate. Ted Cruz is going to come out for Donald Trump. Also, Fly has put this up there, as well as Rhonda in the chat room, that 70% of the people that are showing up for the protest in Charlotte are from outside of Charlotte. They do not live in Charlotte. They're not part of Charlotte.
What did I say, 100%?
Yeah, you said 100%. But it's all being paid protesters that go back to Black Lives Matter, which is an arm of the Nation of Islam, the Black Panthers, New Black Panthers, which is being financed by the Muslim Brotherhood as well as George Soros. So, George, how many people, I want to know how many people actually went into Craigslist to see if there's an advertisement up there looking for protesters to go to Charlotte. I'm willing to bet that there is an ad up there calling for people to protest in Charlotte, paid for, wait for it, George Soros, or an arm of one of George Soros's organizations.
Well, I know that there are some people, not the Black Lives Matter, but they were Hillary people, basically, to go to Bernie rallies, put shirts on and stuff, but they were like a rapid response. I mean, they could be in China within 15 seconds. They were so quick, but they got paid good money. They're all back to hanging out at the corners and drinking again because there's no business anymore. But for a while, they got first class treatment. I mean, they rode on nice buses and but no, seriously, they did that. They were Hillary people.
Well,
so they throw the Bernie stuff on and show up at the rallies, and they show up at Trump rallies, basically cause trouble. But this is something to address that you mentioned. Black Lives Matter are singling out what lives matter, and often the only times we really see them is in a police officer shooting. Why don't they matter? As we know, it's probably going to be another massacre weekend in Chicago, or or abortion. How about the kids in my city where they've basically segregated a school and give them substitute teachers in a real high school? I mean, why don't they matter then? I mean, there's such hypocrisy here.
Oh, exactly what I said. Where is Black Lives Matter in the inner cities where people need jobs, where people are living on the street, where people need help? Why don't you go to the inner city and stop the gang violence out there? Stop innocent children from being killed by stray bullets. Stop the recruitment into gangs of our children. Those lives should matter. Why aren't you going, as you said, into the schools to make sure the education is something that these kids can find their way a hand up instead of a hand out? Why aren't they in front of Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics where 75% of the aborted fetuses happen to be black lives? These are human lives. So stop with the Black Lives Matter BS. It should be all lives matter. Give a hand up instead of a hand out. Get your priorities straight. This is why America is having problems, because you cause a division. You pit one group of people against another. No, that's not what America is based upon. We are a melting pot. We are not multicultural. You see, I'm getting myself on a rant here.
One reason why they don't address black-on-black crime, because they have nothing to gain by it. By doing so, they're calling out the failures of the liberal policies that they live under. So I think, that's an issue they rather avoid, calling out black-on-black crime.
Oh, and as you see, right smack in the middle of the whole thing going on in Charlotte, you see the Right Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Right Reverend Al Sharpton. They're going in there to raise funds to pocket their bank accounts. I guess their bank accounts are getting a little low because Al Sharpton's ratings on CNN are so damn low. So he needs a little supplemental income. So go to where there's a riot, where you can solicit for money to go into your coffers so you can buy yourself that next new shiny car, that next new suit. Get the next diet doctor to make you look like a skeleton.
Go, Annie. Well, my whole...
Don't forget now, Al Sharpton is a very important guy now. He goes to the White House a couple of times a month. He's a big shot now. You gotta respect that.
It's a revolving door. A revolving door. He gave up the Reverend Wright for the Reverend Sharpton. Same church, just a different pew.
Yeah.
All right.
I think, I know we're getting short on time here, but I really think that it is time for a movement among millennials of African American descent or Latino. I think it's time for them to really stand up and to basically, we know what's taking place, and so do they. After 50 years of failure, I think it's time for them to stand up and just say, this is where it ends. Because, I mean, clearly, our educational system has been in the hands of basically, you can go back and forth, but it's been in the hands of the same group for decades. And it is a failing system when it comes to certain demographics. It's undeniable. And, I mean, these Common Core, these, I think the other one was the Goals 2000 or something. You know, they give them these flashy names. They are all failed federal government policies. It just, people need to wake up.
Well, we saw the destruction of the family with the initiation of welfare. Once Lyndon Johnson passed welfare, where you don't require the father and the mother to be together in the same household, you get more money if they are in separate households, and then the more kids you have, the more money you get. No, that wasn't what the original intent of the program was, but Lyndon Johnson saw himself one hell of a way to have a whole set of new constituents, new people voting Democrat. So you bait the hook, you dangle it in front of them, and then, yes, now you got yourself a permanent power base, which is what welfare is, a permanent power base for the left.
Yeah, he said he had blacks, but he didn't use that term, voting Democrat for the next 200 years.
Well, that he did. That he did. And up to that point, blacks traditionally voted Republican. Up until that point. And that's a shame. I mean,
well, I just think they vote. Okay. Anyway, before I go, I'm going to say thank you to you both for letting me again mooch off you guys in the great show. Thanks again, Annie.
And if you're in Grand Rapids voting for the school board, vote Cool Mike. How's that?
Yes, and thanks, Curtis. As always, appreciate your insight, my friend. I'm going to mute myself and let you guys finish the show, but I'm going to mute myself. I'll stay with you, but I'm just going to mute myself.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.
Want to also give a little shout out to Sweet Sue from New Mexico, who tirelessly puts this show out and others. She is one of the sweetest ladies. So if you follow her on Twitter, thank you. If you don't, go up on Twitter and follow Sweet Sue from New Mexico. You know, give her a good rousing cheer for all she does for all our shows. Thank you so much, Sue. Want to thank everyone that's been up in the chat room. It's been a very lively chat room. It's been a lot of fun seeing what you guys have been posting up there. And Sasquatch was asking if Sharpton still owes $4 million in back taxes. No, he does not. They forgave him the debt. Even though they said, yes, he does owe it, they said, no, but you really don't have to pay it. That's the Obama administration for you. I wanted to bring up one last thing, but I see we're running out of time. I'm just going to mention this real quick. And tell me, Curtis, if you see any problem with this. A company called Ingalls Shipbuilding is going to China to look for contractors to help them build a new dry dock to produce U.S. Navy ships. Do we see any problem with a Chinese firm having something to do with building the dry docks that are going to be building our military vessels, Curtis? Isn't it possible?
It kind of reminds me of the contracts we gave Russia one time to build our embassy. And they bugged the place, and it was so bugged, they had to tear it down. And get American contractors.
Oh, man, and this thing just... what they do just never fails to amaze me, our government. It's the stupidity of some of the things they do. But you know what people don't realize is the vast majority of Chinese companies are owned by the Chinese military or the Chinese Politico. You know, you're telling the Chinese government, come on over and help us build our military ships, and you expect them to actually sail and not sink. You actually expect them to build these things and not steal our technology.
These are guys we may have to fight one day.
Oh, man. Like I said, it never, ever fails to amaze me. Well, we're going to be back again on Tuesday. Again, we've got Larry Kobrovsky. He happens to be the Charleston, South Carolina GOP chair, and he was formerly a state school board member. He's got some interesting stuff that is going on. He did a poll that showed that Charleston's approximately 35% population black, and he's saying the poll is showing the majority of them are going to be voting for Trump. That's the poll he's come up with. And then we're going to have Albert Gilroy, who's running for representative for Congress out of Louisiana. He's the Democrat that caused a lot of noise a couple of years back by dumping the Democratic Party and saying, I am now officially a Republican. Not just a Republican. He turns out to be a conservative. So he's running for Congress. He'll be joining us on Tuesday. And then the following Friday, we've got a triple header. Ed Brodow, who's got a new book out about media corruption. Go figure, media corruption. Susan Simmons, who's got a website that helps law enforcement, crisis center basically for law enforcement and military. She's been doing this for 3 decades. And Tim Tapp will be joining us. Tap Into the Truth will be joining us. So we have a triple header coming up on Friday. I apologize to those that called in, listened in for Herb London. It was a very short interview. We'll see what we can do in getting back Dr. Bill Warner, because unfortunately we cut him off abruptly because Herb London wanted to do a solo interview. So I'm going to be calling Bill Warner and apologizing for that cutoff. But we will be back here after the weekend. So everyone out there, be safe and healthy. And we'll see you next week, Curtis. Until then, I say good night and God bless.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank
if you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan. Health care plan. Health care plan.
and we make our face count. Hey, sit down, don't be a jerk, 'cause none deserve it better than the ones who won't work. We're gonna throw away what I hope for this boat. Use your hard-earned money just to buy a new boat. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of the left hypocrisy. Little counterfeit for you and me. Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Here in the land of the not so free. Starting out your dressing stuff for our own cause. We got a pen and telephone to bypass all your laws. Political courageous will replace the Bill of Rights. Support religious freedom, bless you, praise Jesus Christ. The breath is in our pockets, so there's no I'm free. You cannot make a move, now that's the NSAC. Don't expect equality, respect and fair play. The IRS will target those who vote the wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of the left hypocrisy. It'll be counted for you and me. Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Here in the land of the not so free. Oh, 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 oh.
90 seconds.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
60 seconds.
Elections that you don't from the day. Attorney General's lying even while on the road. Ignoring how you veterans and border races vote. Hey, shut your mouth, swallow your pride. What does it matter? Our ambassador died. There's nothing you can do about it, minus the faces. Disagree with anything you label racist. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of the left hypocrisy.
10 seconds.
Welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Here in the land of the not so